Next on our list is Ruby and Rails. I want to install RVM, a Ruby version manager, and what this will do is allow us to have multiple Ruby versions running on our system. So if you want to have the latest version 2.3.0 of Ruby, you can. If at some point you want to switch to Ruby 1.9 for whatever reason, you will be able to do so with a few commands. You can see the website above. And the first step, as you can see, is to input a GPG command, and this will save a security key on our system, which will be used for checking a bit later on. Just copy and paste into a terminal. And let me clear this. And the next is a curl command. Curl is a utility to transfer data either to a server or from a server. Note it says below that we can append --rails or --ruby if we want to get everything in a single command. Remember, we are installing RVM, the program to manage Ruby installations, not Ruby or Rails. So this is just a helpful addition to get us started faster. I will paste the command in the terminal, and in case you are curious about the options here, the small s stands for silent to hide the progress bar and so on. The capital S is for show errors in case we receive any. The capital L handles location details like redirects, authentication, and so on. Next we have the site where we want to get the data from, and notice we have a pipe character. This will take the response from curl, the data it receives, and send it to bash, which is our shell. A shell is a program which receives our commands as we type them and then sends them to the operating system to be interpreted and executed. And the way we interact with the shell is through the terminal we have been using. So we are sending the data to bash with the S option to read the input, and stable refers to the stable version of RVM. If you would omit that, the development version would be used, which might have bugs or something else. I will also append --rails to bring in Ruby and Rails. Let me maximize this. And that's it. Notice it's downloading the archive from GitHub. It's comparing with the signature we imported previously, and it's installing RVM. Now the Ruby installation process has started and we need to input our password again. I will do that and hit enter. And that's it basically. Now we need to wait for it to finish. This process usually takes a couple of minutes, so I will speed this along. And it's finished. Note we get this message to start using RVM, source this file located in home, username, RVM scripts. Source is a command which reads the file and executes the contents in the current shell session. In this case, it wants to add RVM to our shell startup session. So let me copy this, paste it below, and hit enter. And if I check to see the version of Ruby we have, it is the current one. But let me show you something. If I exit the terminal, let me minimize this also, and open the terminal again. And if I do the same check, it's telling us that Ruby is not currently installed. Well, that is because of the way the shell is set up. We have files which are loaded when the shell is started, so when we open the terminal. And we have configuration files for after the shell is started. In this case, we are loading RVM after the shell is started, so it's not working as expected. The way to fix this is, in the terminal menu, go to Preferences, then Profiles, and edit your current profile. In the Command tab, check the Run command as a login shell and close. Now when we source the RVM script, it will be executed and added to our shell startup files. So let me paste the command again, hit enter and exit. Now if you'd reinstall the system, you should run the source command in a login shell directly. I just wanted to show you what happens. And now if we check, we do get our Ruby version. Let me check Rails as well. Okay. Now just to test this out, let me create a new Rails project. Let me type pwd, which stands for print working directory, and this will give me the location I am currently in. In this case, I am in my home folder. So I will make a directory called code with mkdir, make directory, then cd change directory into code. Clear the screen and you will note the prompt was modified, so it's now showing I am in the code folder to the left of the $sign. And here let's create a new Rails project, let's say test project. And done. Let me go into that directory and start a Rails server, and we get an error, which is telling us that Uglifier had a problem. Now, Uglifier, as I'm sure you know, is a JavaScript minifier, and this needs Node.js to work, which we do not yet have. So we will come back to this and make sure it works after we install Node. Let me clear the screen. Before finishing, let me show you a few commands. RVM list known, which shows a list of Ruby environments you can install and test. It has Ruby versions from 1.8.6 to more recent versions, JRuby, and so on. If you want to test these out, you can just type RVM install 2.1 for example, and this will install Ruby version 2.1. If you want to use this Ruby version, just type RVM use 2.1 and this will load it into your terminal. And if you want to use 2.1 by default, whenever you start the session, remember we have 2.3 installed and that is the default, you can pass the -- default option, and this will set whichever Ruby version you specify to be the default. So yeah, that's about it. Ruby is now installed. Rails is giving us an error, so let's work on that next.